Welcome back to Weekly Huddle Podcast. I'm your host, Owen, and today we are doing our first mock draft of draft season. I have held off on doing mine until I could accurately talk about all the draft prospects I'm going to mention today. I have tried to avoid mock drafts for the past few months, and the only ones I've watched or listened to or read happened after I wrote mine. And these are going to be all picks that I would make. I put myself kind of like role-playing as the GM of each team, making decisions for them based on what the coaches are looking for, what the roster looks like, and just the cap situation and stuff like that. So these are all what I would do in the situation, but it actually happens out that a lot of my stuff is actually falling well with predictive boards as well. So I think it's a pretty solid mock draft, and we're going to get right into it. But first, I just want to mention I'm having really great growth right now. It's kind of expected for draft season, but it was never really this good. Some really good passive growth, and I'm hoping to start putting out more videos to capitalize on it. I just, today was my first day I was able to come back. I just got COVID, kind of kicked my ass, and I am just getting on my feet again, and I'm hoping to get out a lot more draft content now that I am feeling better and have an opportunity. Also, I am now going to be writing for Defiant Takes Sports. You can go over there, and we're going to be writing a lot of draft content just because it's that time of year. Me and Nick Merriam, who I had in the show recently, or not recently, but in the past, and he and I are going to be writing these prospect profiles, going over pros and cons of players, and just telling you guys about what round they're gonna be going in, and what our projection is for them in year 2 and stuff like that. So if you're interested in reading some of those guys' prospect profiles, you can head over there. I should be submitting my first one today, and it's all free, and if you just look at it gets me some financial help and stuff like that. So I will encourage you to go do that. And if you want to support me even more, you can go down to the Patreon and pay $1 and get access to every single one of my write-ups. The ones over on Defiant Takes will just be, it's one a different style than the ones I post on the Dynasty Index, but also we're going to be splitting guys, and as well as they're not going to be every one I've done. I currently have 80 guys scouted, and you can check out every single one of them on Dynasty Index, or if you want, just go check out, I think it's we have the top 50 consensus board we're writing for on Defiant Takes, so you can go check those out for free. Either way, supports me, and I'm very grateful for how the channel is performing right now. So let's get right into this mock draft, shall we? Alright, like I said, just a reminder that these are all my picks, and to be honest with you, the first 5 picks of this year's draft seem to be kind of chalk. As long as there's no trade up inside the top 5, these are what I would do, and these are also what I've seen a lot of people would do. Like I said, I didn't check out any mock drafts before I wrote mine, but the ones I checked out afterwards all kind of had the consensus amount of picks here. So I'm just going to rifle through the top 5 real quick, give a couple words, because like I said, a lot of places will have these same picks. Chicago at 1 will go Will Anderson Jr., edge from Alabama. Best overall player in this draft class. Not by much over Jalen Carter, but I think Chicago got rid of Robert Quinn this past offseason, and they have a lot of draft capital to really add around Justin Fields. And the way this draft is built, there's not a lot of genuine first-round talents. Some of these guys in here, I didn't have a single first-round player falling out. There's some second-round players I drafted in here because of need or something like that, but I don't have enough first-round grades right now to fill out a full first-round mock. So if you're at the top of the draft and you can get one of these blue-chip dudes, that's great, because if you trade down to 16, 17, you might not even be getting a first-round eval on your board. So stick at 1, grab the best player in the draft that's in a position of need, and then build the rest of your draft and the rest of free agency around Justin Fields. So I think that's just a solid pick there. Houston, number 2, going Bryce Young, quarterback, Alabama. I think they probably shouldn't go quarterback here, but if I'm the GM of the Texans, and I think, okay, we need to give our fans hope to buy in, I want to give my coach the best opportunity in year 1 to perform, and DeMeco Ryans is a defensive guy. He wants to play defense. He's going to want to have a quarterback who takes care of the football, is accurate, can keep an offense on the field, really drain the clock with the run game and accurate passing, and then let his defense suffocate the other team's offense. I think Bryce Young fits perfectly in that mold. He's able to create outside of structure, so he doesn't really need all that much around him. Alabama's wide receiver core wasn't great this year anyway, so he's often used to playing with subpar receiving talent around him, at least this year. Last year was a different story. I think that's the perfect guy to fit in with Houston's situation immediately, and it'll fit best with what DeMeco Ryans wants to run as a defensive-minded head coach. Arizona, Jalen Carter, defensive tackle. Georgia, probably like if I was to pick a player number 1 overall, and I was like if I'm Chicago, like I said, this would be what I would do. I kind of like Jalen Carter over Will Anderson just because he plays D tackle and is just so physically dominant, but so is Anderson. You really can't go wrong there. Jalen Carter fits best for Arizona because they just lost J.J. Watt. Carter can be that like 3-4 defensive end type. He can swap over to nose tackle. He can do anything you need him to do, especially in a 3-4 defense where he can play any one of the odd front down defensive line positions. And you can even flex him out maybe wide 9 if you really want to. I wouldn't put him at, if you flip down to if you go down into an even front scheme, which they might with their new head coach with Gannon, he could be the 3 tech or the 1 tech or base D end. You can move him everywhere. And I think now with their defensive head coach, they're going to want to really emphasize defense especially while Kyler's out, try to win some games that they shouldn't with some good defense. And I think Jalen Carter is a really impact player here. Indy at 4, I think I'm going to go Will Levis, quarterback from Kentucky, my personal QB1, but he's tied with Bryce Young grade-wise, so you can go either or with me, and I'm fine with that. Indy with Frank Reich gone now, and now it's going to be Shane Steichen. Steichen likes those mobile quarterbacks like he had with Jalen Hurts. I think Levis has legitimate mobility. If there's going to be a Josh Allen comp in this one, I think it's going to be him. I know a lot of people saying Anthony Richardson, but I think Richardson's a better athlete than Allen personally. I think Levis could use that kind of offensive-minded guy who helped coach up Jalen Hurts, who was more of this raw quarterback prospect when he came out of Oklahoma. I think he'll be able to capitalize on Levis's deficiencies when it comes to mechanics and accuracy, fix up his throwing motion like we saw with Josh Allen, and that would make his accuracy a lot better. And he'll really add that running threat to combine on with Jonathan Taylor, like read options and things like that, while also stretching the field with guys they have, like Alec Pierce is a good deep threat. They have Michael Pittman to work the middle of the field. Maybe they'll go and add another receiver in the second round. But for what they want to run with Shane Steichen now and the fact that they don't really have a better option at quarterback, and I don't think they should go to veteran route again because they've tried that already, I think Will Levis would fit perfectly here. Number 5 is Seattle from Denver with Tyree Wilson, the edge rusher out of Texas Tech. If Will Anderson wasn't in this draft class, I think Tyree Wilson would have the best chance of going number 1 overall, even over Jalen Carter. Obviously, edge is more valued, but I think Tyree Wilson has the same kind of skill set Anderson does. They like to both win with power. I think they both have sneaky good athleticism for their size. Will Anderson's probably a little more refined as a pass rusher, but I think they play similar games, and Tyree Wilson's not that far of a drop-off from Anderson. So I think if you're Seattle here, you're getting that 5th overall pick after having made the playoffs. This is beautiful. He's also like that perfect defensive end prototype that Pete Carroll loves, which is going to be like that, what they tried to get with LJ Collier and things like that. So Tyree Wilson should be like the perfect mold, like perfect prospect team marrying here. Number 6, we have one and only one trade in this draft, and it's going to be Carolina moving up from 9 to 6 with Detroit. Detroit getting that 6th overall pick from the Los Angeles Rams, now maximizing that. They already got like a top pick for basically getting a better, and the Rams got worse, obviously, because they're picking 6. So now they can maximize, improve even more draft capital, and really get more rookies in that roster, or save up and trade up later in the first round or in the second round, whatever. But they're acquiring more draft capital here from a pick that is just playing with house money. The Panthers, now I use the draft pick value chart to map out this trade. Detroit's receiving the 9th overall pick, so moving down 3 spots, for the 94th overall pick, which is the back half of the second round, and that's the beginning of the third round, if I'm remembering correctly, somewhere in the third round, and then 2024 second, which should be equal out in value. Maybe Detroit's getting a little more value than they're giving up here, but that's what you need to do, especially if you're going after a quarterback, which Carolina is only receiving the 6th round pick. You could throw in like a 5th or a 6th round pick if you really want to balance it out from Detroit. And they're going to pick C.J. Stroud, quarterback out of Ohio State. I'm not a big C.J. Stroud fan, and this is going to be blown up if they get Derek Carr or something, but I think Carolina should pick their guy in the draft. C.J. Stroud has been talked up a lot. Carolina could easily fall in love with him and have him as QB1, and now he's sitting here at QB3. You have QB-needy teams like Las Vegas. Atlanta would probably take him, and you can't afford to just let them sit there and take it. So especially with division rival Atlanta. So they jump up here grab a quarterback, let Detroit fall. Detroit doesn't really need C.J. Stroud right now. They could stand to draft him, but I feel like they should build out the roster more while they have that stopgap in place with Jared Goff. So yeah, C.J. Stroud, I'm not the biggest fan. Think he's kind of limited as an athlete. But could play that pocket passer style, really distribute the ball to the playmakers that Carolina has, and DJ Moore and Terrence Marshall. So I think it's a good fit, and Frank Reich I had confidence in as a head coach, even though obviously Indy didn't. So I think that'd be like the run on quarterbacks is going to be there, and then it's going to go one more. We have one more quarterback in this first round, but other than that, it's like where the big three are going to land within the top 6. At number 7, Las Vegas was just sniped by Carolina. And this is going to be an unpopular pick because most people might want them going offensive tackle, but I'm not really in love with all the offensive tackles in this draft class. I'm actually pretty down on them, especially the top ones. You'll see that in a little bit. And I was just thinking, like, what could Las Vegas add to be more of an impact draft for them going forward? Look at who they have that's going to be expiring contracts, who's kind of an older guy on a contract that they could get rid of or move on from in a year or two. So I have them taking, and again, this isn't my favorite dude. He's actually in the back half of the first round, but I have him taking Myles Murphy, edge out of Clemson. Now, most people would be like, why would you do that? They have Max Crosby, and they just signed, Chandler Jones. But Chandler Jones has had trouble staying healthy, especially last year. He wasn't the best. He had 5 sacks in week 1. They kind of fell off a little bit. He's going to be expensive for you, especially once you're paying Max Crosby. So I think having Myles Murphy, who I think is a great athlete but needs to develop more as a pass rusher, add more pass rushing moves to his toolkit, be a better run defender. I think he can sit behind and be a rotational pass rusher while Chandler Jones plays out the rest of his career in Las Vegas and then move on and become that genuine 1B to Max Crosby's 1A there. Give him more pop off the edge, especially in that division where you're going to play Patrick Mahomes and Justin Herbert and now the Sean Payton-led Russell Wilson. You're going to need to get after the quarterback, especially with how the Chiefs are struggling are going to be losing their offensive tackle to free agency in the form of Orlando Brown. You could really put pressure on him and try to win some games like that. And I'd say they probably go after like a Jimmy Garoppolo in free agency, really match him up with McDaniels. And we'll see where that goes. But Myles Murphy, edge out of Clemson for the Vegas Raiders. Atlanta, number 8. I think this team might actually make a swing for Lamar Jackson, and I was thinking about going Bijan Robinson here. I'm really high on Bijan Robinson, as most people are, and I thought that'd be good, but they have some good running back depth. I mean, neither of them prevent you from drafting Bijan, but I think that if you could add on to this defense and really make it so that way you can do that run game, maybe swing a trade from Lamar Jackson, which would take this pick away, but I didn't mock that here, and then just play hard defense, run the ball. If you really want to add to your running back room, add a guy in the 2nd or 3rd round like Sean Tucker or a guy like Zach Charbonnet who would really replicate that, Derrick Henry aspect that Arthur Smith would like, or even like a Cameron Peoples. Like, you don't have to go that high in the draft to get a running back to match the style you want. So I didn't go with Bijan here. I decided just to go with cornerback Cam Smith out of South Carolina. I am super high on Cam Smith, higher than anybody else I've seen so far. I think he plays with great leverage when he has great ball skills. He may not be like the top tier athlete like let's say a Devin Witherspoon is, or some of these other guys that are getting projected towards the top of the draft where they're able to, run real fast and test really well at the combine. I think he'll be more middle of the pack, Cam, but I think his use of leverage to make up for that, his awareness in zone, his ability to flip his hips, his playing the ball in the air, his aggressiveness, his mentality, he plays the run well, tackles well. I have no questions about his game right now. Like I said, he doesn't have the top tier athleticism, so he's not going to be super fast, and you might not want him to match up one-on-one with Tyreek Hill, but rarely are our guys going to even be able to do that, even the top athletes in this draft class at the position. So I think for everything Atlanta has, I think adding a number 2 corner opposite A.J. Terrell will be really great, and then you can run that defense, absolutely shut down, keep it in it, and then grind out wins with the run game. Like I said, you can add a Charbonnet or Cameron Peoples or something like that later in the draft. We're back on Detroit now, who has Carolina's pick at 9, and we're going to go Anthony Richardson, quarterback out of Florida. I was debating just giving him to them at 6 because there's no way that to know if Las Vegas would grab him and then draft or sign Garoppolo and just have him there, stash him, or Atlanta draft someone, have Ritter play the starting quarterback and just develop Richardson behind him. I'm not the biggest fan of either of those moves for those two teams, so I let him fall here to 9 to Detroit. They have Jared Goff for at least another season. They could probably move on with him after that, but I think that they keep him there for as long as they need, even bring him back if need be. Play with great running game and strong defense, which they're going to add to throughout the draft, and develop Richardson so that way he can emerge after Ben Johnson's done molding him and hammering him into the perfect QB prospect for that system. Roll them out, and then they'll hopefully be set up with their roster will be great and good to go everywhere else. They just need that multi-dimensional quarterback piece, and then that should be what Richardson provides for them as soon as they get done molding him and training him up and really working on his disadvantages here. Richardson's obviously a super athlete, and he'll go into that run game a lot. When he finally does get in, maybe they'll put him in as like some special packages, kind of like a Taysom Hill type. So we'll see where that goes, but I think this is the best landing spot for him, especially with how this team is ascending and has a stopgap option in front of him so he doesn't be forced into playing right away. Number 10, Philadelphia here with New Orleans' pick. They're going to go Christian Gonzalez, quarterback out of Oregon. Super big, long corner. I think Philly could add opposite James Bradbury. Obviously, they lost the Super Bowl, but they give the 10th overall pick here. And if they're going to want to make some cost-cutting maneuvers later on to try to re-sign some of their guys like Jason Kelce or other dudes who are going to be free agents, I think adding a corner and eventually making maneuverability room to drop another guy out that later down the road might be older or declining, then that'll be good. Or in general, just adding an elite corner prospect is going to be good for your defense regardless, and you're lucky to be here after just being in the Super Bowl. So adding Christian Gonzalez is really going to boost up that defense, who looked like they needed maybe 1 or 2 more pieces in the back 7, and this is that 1 or 2 more piece, we'll get to that later in the draft, that they could add and to be set to go. Tennessee at 11 is going to grab Peter Skoronski, offensive tackle from Northwestern. You can put him at tackle, guard, wherever. I think he's the best tackle in his draft class. He might be a little short arm, but at the same time, we saw another Northwestern tackle like Rashawn Slater overcome that. I don't know if he's the athlete Rashawn Slater is, so he might be best at guard, but even then, you just need to retool this offensive line, especially if you want to make it so that way you can take advantage of Derrick Henry's last good few years here. He's getting up there in age, especially with the game he plays. He's going to start falling off and declining. So build that offensive line up, run your team through that running game and that offensive line, and this is going to be going a long way even after Henry's gone. Protecting Malik Willis and things like that is going to be a number one priority. So Peter Skoronski goes into, I think he's good in both areas of the game, pass blocking and run blocking, and I think this is just going to be a plug-and-play Mike Vrabel from the Patriots system. This is a very Patriots-like offensive tackle, offensive line guy. I think that will play well into what they need right now, and it's just a good fundamental build to the trenches, which I think a guy like Vrabel will do if he can't get a top-end defensive prospect. Houston at 12 from Cleveland's pick takes Jackson Smith-Njigba, wide receiver out of Ohio State. A little bit of a fall here for receivers. It's probably not going to happen in real life. Receivers usually get drafted higher than a lot of people have them valued. I have JSN valued as number 1 receiver, even though he did miss time this past year. I think he's a great route runner. I've seen other people disagree with that. I think he's a good subtle route runner when it comes to short and medium routes, runs at full speed, is able to transition well, doesn't have to slow down or stop a lot in his routes, and is able to make some harsh cuts, good with the ball in his hands, and I think will give Bryce Young that elite number 1 receiver in Houston, so that way at least in year 1 they'll have a lot of things to advertise and to go after, even if the team's not winning. At number 13, we have New York Jets going Brian Branch, safety out of Alabama. Just another defensive piece here. You could put him as your slot corner because you already have your 2 outside corners down. I originally was thinking about going corner here, so maybe that the Jets could go and replace, I can't remember what the other guy is, opposite Sauce right now. But just adding to that defensive backfield, that's a strength for you. Strengthen it even more, make it overwhelming, so that way you can cover for maybe some quarterback deficiencies if you get Aaron Rodgers or not. I think that'd be a good move just to be able to really hang your hat on something to win tough, grinding out games and not get in these blowouts where you might not be able to match up because the other team has a better quarterback or a better quarterback situation than you, especially with who your offensive play callers are now, but we're not going to get into that. Number 14, New England's going to go Jordan Addison, wide receiver out of USC. I was thinking about going Quentin Johnson here. It's like something that the Patriots would do in the past, and somewhere I'm kind of afraid he's going to go because N'Keal Harry and the such. But I think Addison's a better fit right now. They're losing Jacoby Myers potentially. They might want to pay him, so Addison can come in, be that route running kind of guy. Really get some good chemistry going with Mac Jones, who really excelled when he had Devonta Smith and other route runners at Alabama with him. So this could really just be a return to form for Mac Jones, get a guy that his skill set he's used to working with, somebody just not like this number one dominant player that he didn't really have the past few years in New England. At number 15, Green Bay is taking Michael Mayer, tight end out of Notre Dame. I'm not the biggest fan of taking tight ends early in the draft, even though I do think they have really great value when they do turn out to be elite. Michael Mayer has been a prodigy since he was a freshman at Notre Dame. And Green Bay really hasn't had that kind of tight end production from them. Like, they had Robert Tonyan go off for a bunch of touchdowns, but like, you don't really want to have him prevent you from getting Michael Mayer. And especially if they go with Jordan Love, they're going to really want that safety blanket kind of ability that Michael Mayer offers to pair with their young rookie quarterback. So I think overall this is a really no downside pick. Add another pass-catching option to replace Allen Lazard's production. Give yourself a good tight end when you really haven't had one since like Jared Cook, and even then that's stretching it. And like just overall give your young quarterback what you're probably going to go with. I would go with him if I was the Packers. I'd be telling Rodgers like retire or pick somewhere. And just moving on with it and give your quarterback this kind of safety blanket. So I really like that pick. A lot of people might not like it, but oh well. Number 16, Washington takes Devin Witherspoon, cornerback out of Illinois. One of the last guys I got to before I started making this. Devin Witherspoon, great man corner, great athlete overall, has average height and length, so I think he'll work well in a like more man coverage scheme. Washington, I think, needs another cornerback. They tried out William Jackson. He wasn't like the best for them, so adding this guy onto the roster will really just help them continue to build that defense up, which was really good a couple seasons ago. They have a good safety in Cameron Curl. They have Chase Young, obviously. And if they can get back to having that dominant defense, it might be able to cover for their lack of offensive, weaponry and quarterback play. So building up that defense, really leaning on that defense to be good and keep you in games might really help you steal a couple wins and potentially make the playoffs with Carson Wentz at your quarterback, if that's who they're still going to go with that quarterback. So we'll see. Number 17, Pittsburgh takes Joey Porter Jr. As a Bills fan, Levi Wallace being your number 2 corner, even your number 1 in case of injury, isn't the best thing. Like, he's a solid guy, but I wouldn't want to rely on him to be my number 2 shutdown, especially in a league that's moving towards having 2 elite wide receivers or at least 2 good wide receivers to really be good, especially in the AFC. We're going to be facing guys like the Bengals who have T. Higgins if they keep him, and Jamar Chase, stuff like that. So I think having a guy who has the length and physical skills that Porter has to really come in and be that lockdown guy, have that length to disrupt passes. I'm not the biggest fan of his instincts in zone. I think he's going to work better as a man corner, but I have faith that the Steelers team coaches like Tomlin and things like that can coach him up and really get the best out of him. And overall, just replace what they're going to be losing if, like I said, if like the number 1 corner goes down, they can't have Minka Fitzpatrick play every position. So just adding to that secondary, taking some more pressure off of him, allowing them to be more fluid and have more good DBs out there so that way they're not getting roasted and can, let Kenny Pickett not play from as big behind a lead as he has been, could really come in and help. Number 18, Detroit's up with their actual pick, and this one's going to be controversial because I want to help the run game out, and I was originally giving them Bijan Robinson here. But they have 2 backs in Jamal Williams and DeAndre Swift. I'm not sure if their contracts are up, but I'm sure neither of them are really going to drive a pretty penny, so you could probably bring it back cheap. So I think maybe if you want to add to that room, you can go grab another guy in the later rounds that fit more schematically or skill set wise, as opposed to Bijan, who was like this all around superstar. You want to still give those guys touches. If Bijan's there, Bijan's going to command a lot more touches. So I think getting a guy who's more role specific or skill specific is going to be better off for their run game in general. So I grabbed a guy. I went off my board. I really reached here on my grade. I think I have this guy graded as a 3rd-round pick. But he is so unique in what he does, and I couldn't imagine anyone else having one team besides the Lions. And that's going to be Darnell Washington, the tight end out of Georgia. And another thing I like better than with Bijan is that you traded away T.J. Hawkinson. So not only are you replacing Hawkinson and upgrading this position, which if you got Bijan Robinson, yes, you're upgrading it, but it's not because you traded away your best running back or like lost your best running back to free agency. It's just you're just adding another running back. Whereas now at tight end, you've lost your best tight end, a Pro Bowl tight end. You're replacing him with somebody who's not as developed receiving wise as Hawkinson was even coming out. But he is absolutely the most dominant run-blocking tight end I've ever seen in my life. Like, if you put Darnell Washington next to Penei Sewell and Frank Ragnow on that right, you just put that whole right side up and load it up. There's no one stopping that. You're going to get 3 to 4 yards every play. So this is going to be a huge boon to your run offense. Even though you're not getting the best running back that's come out since, like, Saquon Barkley, you're still going to upgrade the run offense, which is what our objective was with this pick, as well as replacing the lost Pro Bowl talent you had and upgrading that position group, which is worse off than your running back group. And then, like I said, improving your running back group maybe by going more skill specific so you can have more of a stable of backs as opposed to one dominant guy who's going to be taking touches away from dudes who had a decent season last year. So, personally, this is my favorite pick of the draft, of this mock draft, even though, like I said, it's way off my board if he's up in the 3rd round. But I think the fit and the need and everything just played so well for Detroit that I couldn't really go anybody else here, even if the value is a little much for myself. And you can do this if you're Detroit. This is creating an identity, setting a tone, and if you need to go off the board, we have to go off the board to get it. And I can't miss out. I can't risk missing out on this guy. So even if I have to go reach, I'm going to reach for him. At 19, Tampa Bay selects Bijan Robinson, running back out of Texas. Tampa Bay lost Tom Brady. They need a replacement at quarterback. I think with where they're drafting right now, because they made the playoffs, they're going to have to go with a stopgap option, like whether that's Kyle Trask, which I really don't think it should be, or they bring in like a Sam Darnold or a Baker Mayfield or somebody who can come in and just be that one-year guy. They need to establish some kind of offensive identity and take the pressure off of him. So Lenny just doesn't get it done during the regular season. If they can draft a guy like Bijan and have him be the focal point of their offense, they can run it through him. They'll be able to just take pressure off that quarterback, have a run-heavy offense, runs a lot of play action, really let Mike Evans stretch the field, Chris Godwin run those short routes that is set up while he's selling the play action. I think this just adds, and they just totally changed the offense. They went from not being able to run the ball at all to getting Bijan, who was a guaranteed 4 yards a carry. So, like, if you're not going to be able to hit on any of these quarterbacks in the early first round, and maybe you go for like a guy in the later rounds, like a Jay Kaner, grabbing Bijan here and creating a new offensive identity while you're trying to figure out that quarterback position is going to be ideal for this. Even though you probably should go maybe like a cornerback or something, I think this is probably the better pick. Also, it's better value-wise. He's the top guy left on the board, and he has been since probably like pick 5. So at number 20, we have the Seattle Seahawks going off the board once again. This is going to be a guy who's near the bottom of the 2nd round for me, but as the GM of the Seattle Seahawks, we've just taken Tyree Wilson, and we want to keep building through the trenches. Gabe Jackson's getting older. We also don't have the best center in general, so we could stand to upgrade there. This guy is a bottom 2nd round of eval for me, but I was at the Senior Bowl as the GM of the Seahawks, and I saw how he reacted, how he was a leader out there, and just how he dominated some of these other guys. So even though I'm not going to up his grade, I'm going to reach and grab him here, get a good positional fit as well as just recency bias here with John Michael Schmitz, center out of Minnesota. I'm not the biggest fan of him. I think he'd probably be better as a guard because his get off is a little slow when he's snapping the ball. I think his power is lacking because of that. He's not really able to get into the defenders as much as you'd like. But so being a guard and not having to worry about completing the snap would be better for that. But at the moment, I think he's a serviceable enough starting center. You probably won't be able to run a lot of power gap schemes, but he can still start. He's still good in pass pro. He's still intelligent, good technique. I think you can draft him in here, be your starting center. Maybe when Gabe Jackson leaves or retires, you can move him over to guard, get another guy in at center. Vice versa, get someone else at guard to replace Gabe Jackson. However, so you're just building through the trenches, getting cheaper at center for the next 4 years, and you're getting a real alpha dog leader in that offensive line room. So I think you add that compared with the 2 tackles you have in Abraham Lucas and Charles Cross. I think you're going to be building a nice offensive line there for whoever you have at playing quarterback for you. Maybe it's Geno, maybe it's not. I think that's just a good overall pick, even if it's off the board a little bit. The Chargers taking Quentin Johnston, wide receiver TCU. Keenan Allen is rumored to be going on the outs. I think Quentin Johnston isn't the route runner. Obviously, he's not the route runner. Keenan Allen is. And he might be a little bit redundant with Mike Williams, but I think Mike Williams might be able to step in and be that number one kind of route running guy. He's hopefully he's developed that at this point. You're paying him $20 million a year, and have Quentin Johnston step in and be that deep threat, big body guy who you can get the ball in his hands and let him work after the catch. I think this is going to be. They'll make it work. I'm worried that it'll be too redundant, but I believe in my coaching staff to make this work. He'll come in, and you're just adding more talent around Justin Herbert in a place that you're probably going to cut or lose it to save money. And even if you keep Keenan Allen and Mike Williams, getting Quentin Johnston just makes it better. Run Keenan Allen at the slot, run these two on the outside. Now you have the biggest receivers in the entire league. Who's stopping this? You're going to have a bunch of small corners on them. Herbert doesn't even have to be accurate to really get some yards with these guys. So I don't really think there's a downside here. If you guys can't make it work, it's a fault on the coaching staff as opposed to a fault on the receiver himself. 22, Baltimore takes Paris Johnson. They're relying on Morgan Moses to be their right tackle, and I think that Paris Johnson's the best available tackle. A lot of people have him going top 10. I'm not that high on any of these tackles, really, to make him a top 10 pick. Skoronski was my earliest at 11. I think it's a bit of a reach even then. But Johnson coming in, taking over from Morgan Moses and really giving them an answer at that tackle spot, which they've been kind of trying to fill since Alejandro Villanueva, now Morgan Moses. And even if you think, well, Morgan Moses played all right last year, I probably disagree with you. But at the same time, then you have him as insurance policy to Ronnie Stanley, and you can play him at guard, which he has I don't know if he has experience at guard, really, but I'm sure you can maneuver that around. There's never going to be a bad time to have too many offensive linemen. And like I said, I think that he'd be a better upgrade over Morgan Moses, even day one. So we'll see where that goes. At 23, we have the Minnesota Vikings taking Jahmyr Gibbs, the running back out of Alabama. This is in a world where I cut James Cook to save $4 million on the cap. We're running with Kirk Cousins and these receivers. Jahmyr Gibbs gives an amazing receiving option. You're not going to lose any of the receiving ability out the backfield by cutting Cook if you draft Gibbs. I think Gibbs might even be an equal level talent as Cook. Maybe he's not as fast as Cook, but I think this is more a lateral move. If anything, you're just getting cheaper at running back and not really losing much when it comes to it. Maybe you'll take a dip initially in round one, or in year one, but by year two, I think Gibbs can be just as good as Cook. So this is more of a lateral move, and I think it's just to help cost saving and really keep the offense multidimensional as opposed to just chuck Justin Jefferson the ball. 24, Jacksonville takes DeJuan Jones, the offensive tackle at Ohio State. Most people might say, why didn't you give DeJuan Jones to Baltimore? He's like this huge right tackle guy, would work great for their run offense. They already have that guy in Danielle Falele. I don't want to give him that as well for both tackle spots in the future. As well as I have Paris Johnson graded decently higher than DeJuan Jones. I just got done with him. He is rare when it comes to size and ability to use that size, and it's pretty awesome. But at the same time, I'm like, again, don't want to be redundant with Falele, and I think he'd help more of a Jacksonville team that needs to have that dominant presence on the outside, who has a quarterback that can get the ball out quickly if he gets pressured with speed, he might get caught up a little bit. He wasn't really tested all that much. I feel like Lawrence is better to get the ball out faster than whoever's playing quarterback for Baltimore. Even if it is Lamar, he might hold the ball a little longer and get DeJuan Jones in some trouble. So early on, at least, I think DeJuan Jones would fit better for the Jaguars. We've been playing this dance with Cam Robinson, and I'm forgetting who the other tackle is, who also is going to be gone. They have Walker Little in the wings. I liked him a few draft classes ago. He might be able to step in and take over at left tackle. But you've been doing this dance of, are we going to release these guys? Are we not going to have these guys for both your tackles for a couple seasons now? I think DeJuan Jones, plug and play right tackle. If you keep Cam Robinson, Walker Little could play guard, or you lose Cam Robinson, Walker Little steps in, plays left tackle. I think this is a permanent fix to a situation that's been bothering you for a couple years now, and it's going to be a guy who you're going to be able to build your run game around and run behind a lot. The 25, the Giants get an absolute steal here. My only interior offensive lineman who has a first-round grade, Cody Mock, guard out of North Dakota State. absolute elite movement skills for an offensive lineman. And I think that Dable, being the guy coming from Buffalo, wants to run that like more of a wide zone thing. They're probably going to lose Saquon. They probably not going to want to pay him. You can grab a guy who fits that scheme later in the later rounds. There's a lot of versatile guys in this draft class. I'm not a big fan of them, but Zach Evans could be an option there. And then you can really establish yourself. You can have Mock play center, guard, wherever you need him to play, tackle, but I wouldn't suggest it. And I think he'll be phenomenal, especially in a scheme that I think Dable wants to run in his offense. Even if you want to run power, I think Mock has the tenacity, and he showed up at the Senior Bowl and showed that he can have that power in the run game against other guys who are going to be pros. So Mock, best player on the board, fits a position of need. I think it's a great pick for them. Dallas goes Lucas Van Ness, edge out of Iowa. Kind of a raw guy, high athlete. They need somebody. They've been trying to find somebody opposite DeMarcus Lawrence for years, and also DeMarcus Lawrence also hasn't been that great for the past year or so. They're paying him a little too much for what he's producing. I think if they can get another guy to come in like Van Ness who can flash early and often, then allow Micah Parsons to play more of that traditional linebacker role, not be relied upon to be the entire thing, the entire pass rush for that team, I think that'd be better. Or even live in a world where Van Ness takes over for DeMarcus Lawrence and have him and Parsons be your edge rushers. But for right now, I think there's no downside in grabbing Ness or Van Ness and seeing what develops with Lawrence and Micah. And you never have too many pass rushers, especially because Van Ness is a little more raw. And if you have those two guys already on your roster, you can slowly bring them into the fold. I think this is a good pick for them, and most people won't say that. They probably want a receiver or something like that, but I think this is a better pick when it comes to looking to save money in the future, as well as for the player and what he needs before he could be a starter. 27, and I'm going to mock this, not only because I called my shot on the Draft Dudes podcast a couple months ago, and not only because I need to highlight this guy because I'm like the only one who sees him as a first-round pick, but just because I think it fits the best with this team. I'm talking about the Buffalo Bills, and I'm going with Xavier Hutchinson, wide receiver out of Iowa State. I think he has a rare blend of traits when it comes to a big guy who is quick, has quick feet and can run those short to intermediate routes really crisp and flashy. I know a lot of Bills fans were on about how Gabe Davis, they want him gone, they want him traded. No, he needs to be that role, that deep threat. He's not the number 2 guy. They kept bringing in more of these route running kind of guys to play opposite stuff on Diggs, so they didn't have to change a lot when they flip plays and things like that to take advantage of coverages or matchups. They kept bringing in these route runners and kept Gabe Davis as this wide receiver 3 deep threat guy. And then they were hoping that Davis could take the next step and become that route runner. Fortunately, couldn't. So you bring in a guy like Hutchinson who can attack the short to intermediate, and that's where he's going to make a lot of his money, is doing that. He's not the best with deep speed. That's what you got Davis for, and Diggs to an extent. And yeah, that's just what they need. That's what they need at a wide receiver. They don't need this elite other guy. They need somebody who plays well into their scheme. And in the year or so when Gabe Davis is most likely gone because he's getting paid by somebody else to drop 50% of his passes, Hutchinson can take over that role as well because he's the same size, 6'3", over 200, probably 210, 215. When all said and done, probably after getting into an NFL weight room, he'll probably be around there. So yeah, I think he can take over for Gabe Davis once Gabe Davis leaves, and in the meantime, play that role that they don't want Gabe Davis to be in. At 28, we have Cincinnati with Broderick Jones, the offensive tackle out of Georgia, another guy where this is where we're going to be dipping into the second-round picks who are sneaking into the first. I went back and checked my board. I have one first-round pick leaking out of here, but it's just because of the lack of need at the position and stuff like that from teams drafting. But this is going to be the area where team needs override the draft board, and really it's going to be like that for the next 3 out of 4 picks. But yeah, Broderick Jones, offensive tackle out of Georgia, kind of a raw prospect, really great athlete for his size. I think he needs to work better on sticking on blocks and refining his technique overall. But I think Cincinnati, who has offensive line problems, has had offensive line problems for years, can bring him in, be a traditional tackle, let Jonah Williams kick inside to guard, run him and Lyle Collins as your tackles. Jonah Williams playing at the guard position, which people have been trying to project him to ever since he was going to be drafted. And let him develop and really try to build that offensive line around Joe Burrow, which has gotten them in trouble in the past, whether it was a Super Bowl in games in this past year, like week 1 against the Steelers, if you can have 5 great offensive linemen in front of him, they'll be a lot better no matter what you think about what their offensive line is currently, and they can always stand to be upgraded. It never hurts to build up the trenches. I was thinking about giving a wide receiver here, but I think this class is deep enough that you can get like a Rashee Rice in the second round to replace T. Higgins. That's what I was thinking of, T. Higgins. There's some guys that can fill that hole if you really need to, but I think immediately you're running out of like quality offensive tackles right now, and Broderick Jones is probably the last of them that can go in this area, and you got to snatch them up and really improve that offensive line, which is probably their biggest weakness at the very moment. Another reach, but I mean, we're at that point where there's no first-round guys left besides the one we'll get to, is New Orleans at 29, taking Isaiah Foskey, edge out of Notre Dame. They're going to be losing Marcus Davenport. They haven't really found that other edge rusher opposite Cam Jordan since they drafted Davenport and spent 2 first-round picks on him. And even then, Cam Jordan's getting up there in age, so this is going to be a cheaper option for a team that's consistently $100 million over the cap, it seems like. So you're going to lose a lot of guys like Davenport. Bringing Foskey, he has that speed to power kind of game, can learn a lot from Cam Jordan. I know he fell off for a lot recently, but I still have him as a top of the second-round prospect. You can come and draft him, even if you want to switch him out to like maybe a 3-4 offensive linebacker. You could do that. They haven't really found that Sam that they really want to rely on. I know Zach Bond was supposed to be that guy, and he wasn't able to be. But I would play him at the defensive end position, him and Cam Jordan on the edges. I think Michael Onwenu is your defensive tackle right now. And really, it's just cost-cutting measures at this point. It's not really... There's a lot of needs for this team, especially with who's going to be a free agents that they can't pay. This was just the best when it came to fitting what's left on the board with need and fixing that cap situation or making it at least a little easier and getting cheaper. Especially edge is going to be a really expensive position to re-sign. So if you can get a cheap guy that can replicate what Davenport gave you, that's best. And even if this might even be an upgrade over Davenport, to be honest with you. Philly with their actual pick here, it's going to be Trenton Simpson, linebacker out of Clemson. They're going to be Kaiser White and I forget what the other guy's name is, the other linebacker, but they have 2 of their starting linebackers hitting free agency along with a bunch of other guys that they might want to not re-sign and just get cheaper because you wanted to constantly keep refreshing it, especially if you have to pay Jalen Hurts soon. You're going to need to maneuver that cap space, and I think Trent Simpson, bringing him in, they drafted Nakobe Dean basically to sit for a year and develop as their weak side linebacker. Trent Simpson is a super freaky, athletic, 6'4", 240-pound linebacker prospect who can come in and be like that middle linebacker prototype. I'd probably prefer him to be a strong side linebacker. So I mean, you can always grab like a Jax, keep revamping this and move one of your guys over middle, play him at middle if you're really comfortable with that. Depends on what defensive scheme they want to go with now that their defensive coach is now gone. But I think Trenton Simpson gives you something different than what you have in Nakobe Dean. Replaces some guys more cheaply and allows you to pay Jalen Hurts while also keeping that defense up and adding again to that back seven, which was looking a little behind the Chiefs or at least the second half of the Super Bowl. So cheap replacements. This is a theme with these guys in the back half. When you're a playoff team, you want to get cheap replacements for guys that are going to be upcoming free agents or you're planning on losing in free agency. So Trent Simpson does that, and I should pair well as like the antithesis of Nakobe Dean, give you some variety back there in the second level. And the 31st pick, this might change when I finally do Jalen Hyatt. I haven't gotten to yet, but I'm not expecting a lot. I've seen a lot of mixed messaging on him, whether he's a great first-round prospect or like a fourth-round, can't get off the line of scrimmage kind of guy. But the Chiefs are going to add Zay Flowers, wide receiver out of Boston College. I've been on him since 2019, and I had him as like a fourth-round guy for a while, and then the last 2 years he's really picked his game up, especially this past year. With as much quarterback problems as they've had, he's been really that bastion of good play, and I think him going to KC1 is just not fair. He adds like this wide receiver speed option that they haven't had since they lost Tyreek Hill. Juju's going to be gone. He could be their run after catch guy. They have some size with MVS and Travis Kelce, so I think he fits good for what they're lacking in the receiver room, and he's just a good overall receiving prospect. And I think KC adding that, the rich get richer, and if they're going to keep winning Super Bowls, they got to keep it up with offensive. Like, you don't want to rely on Mahomes to carry the offense every single year. He might be able to do it, but adding weapons around him is only going to make that easier. So I think even with defensive deficiencies, you let your guys drafted last year develop and add a genuine, probably number 1 or number 2 receiver and you don't really need number 1, you have Kelsey. So, but yeah, that'll be the end of my 2023 mock draft 1.0. We have one trade in there, a couple reach picks for myself personally. You've heard where I have all these guys graded. If you want to see all of them stacked up against each other, you can go pay a single dollar a month at KeelPro88 on Patreon, KIELPRO88, and you'll see all of my rankings as well as Caleb's rankings, who he does the quarterbacks, running backs, receivers, and tight ends. I do everybody else, but you can also see my rankings for those positions if you go onto my specific big board at the bottom, and you'll be seeing more of my individual pro-con prospect profiles roll out for Defiant Takes after this. So, yeah, I need to go drink some water. I've been talking for a long time, and go edit this out and get it out. So, thanks for you guys watching. Let me see your opinions about it down in the comments or on Twitter at Weekly Huddle. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one.